Oh my goodness. I have a lot to walk through with you in this segment, so get ready. Unfortunately, we have to start with something not so great, and that is Marjorie Taylor Greene posting some unhinged stuff on social media. And so we'll walk through a couple of those. Then I'll show you the speech that she's reacting to and some great moments from it from Biden. Then we'll get back to a video of MTG being confronted, one of my favorites, and then some other things as well. So stick around for all of it. But first, RNC Research, which is an account on X that often deceptively edits Biden, as we talked about with his Normandy speech, where they completely created a narrative out of thin air that he was trying to sit in an invisible chair when he wasn't. But here, I don't think there's deceptive cuts, and instead it's just this moment that then MTG will have a crazy reaction to.
By the way, if they want to think to take on government if we get out of line, which they're talking again about, well, guess what? They need F-15s. They don't need a rifle.
Yeah, I'll show you some other moments from the speech. It'll give you a good sense of why they chose to only post that 11 seconds. But the point he's making is important, and I'll get to MTG's response, but the point he's making just destroys a lot of the arguments we hear in defense of people like Marjorie Taylor Greene's stance on gun regulations, which is obstructing any attempts to address gun violence in the United States. And that is an argument that goes something like, well, we need completely unrestricted access to these firearms, and it would be a horrible violation of the Second Amendment if we did an assault weapons ban, because we need these things to take down the government if it becomes tyrannical. And the point Biden's making is, now that we've advanced in the technology we have and the types of weapons that we have, almost every reasonable person agrees that the military is going to have certain things like F-15s. The military is going to have certain things like nuclear weapons, like military-grade drones, like automatic weapons that your average citizen isn't going to have access to. So to pretend like holding on to this idea of preventing any regulations further on guns, that's going to be the thing that stops the government from becoming tyrannical, when the government already has so much more military capabilities than you could possibly imagine, is a little bit silly. That's the point he's making. Okay. So then MTG takes that. You saw the clip, and she says, as if she's responding to a different clip altogether, Joe Biden just threatened American citizens with F-15s. Yeah, that's definitely what we heard. This is why the Second Amendment is so vital. This is why we need a red wave this November. This is why we must take back our country. So she's telling her audience, we need our Second Amendment because Biden's threatening us with F-15s, which is dangerous, not accurate, but dangerous, when all he's saying is your argument doesn't make sense, given that even you, Marjorie, don't think average citizens who aren't in the military should have access to certain types of weapons, as is already the case now. And you're not advocating on behalf of changing, at least I haven't heard her, because that would cause destruction in the United States, the likes of which you rarely see. And so it's an important point there. Before getting back to the second thing I want to show you from her, here's a couple moments the RNC Research account is not going to post for you.
After a school shooting in Iowa that killed a student and a teacher, my predecessor was asked about it. You remember what he said? He said, have to get over it. Hell no, we don't have to get over it. We got to stop it. We got to stop it, and stop it now.
Yeah, and it's the same people, I'll remind you, saying their wild fear-mongering about drag queens, for example, is justified because we're for protecting the kids, that then go on to obstruct action to minimize the leading cause of death for children in the United States, which is firearms. So they don't want to do something about the leading cause of death for children, but they want to coin themselves the Protect the Kids party. Not super consistent. Here's another moment from Biden.
My predecessor told the NRA convention recently, he's proud that, quote, I did nothing on guns when I was president. And by doing nothing, he made the situation considerably worse. That's why every town, why this summit, why all of you here today are so damn important. We need you. We need you to overcome the unrelenting opposition of the gun lobby, gun manufacturers, so many politicians when they oppose common sense gun legislation.
That's exactly right. There it is. Now back to MTG. Unfortunately, we also have big news today about President Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, being convicted. He purchased a gun. He was still addicted to drugs. He violated the law in doing so, lied on a form, etc. He's being held accountable legally and was found guilty in this criminal trial. That's happening within the context of MAGA claiming that Biden has turned the justice system into a two-tier justice system to protect those that Biden wants protected and hurt Biden's enemies. Now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense when Biden's son is now facing years in prison due to Biden's DOJ's prosecution of him. And Marjorie Taylor Greene, don't worry, she has an explanation as to why their narrative still makes sense. The Biden crime family, she writes, sold the brand and access to the big guy to line their pockets beyond their wildest dreams, all at the expense of the American people and national security. The only reason they convicted Hunter on 3 counts in comparison with President Trump's whopping 34 false felony charges is to give the appearance of blind justice system. The American people don't buy it. Joe Biden must be impeached, and we must end the two-tiered system of justice in America. So she's relying on the Biden crime family narrative, the same narrative that has led to a total humiliation for James Comer, who's leading that investigation, trying to prove that Biden engaged in some sort of corruption and wrongdoing, and he's failed at every turn because eventually, I hope they'll admit it, Biden's just not those terms. Your guy is, but President Joe Biden is not, as shown by the months and months and really years of investigations by Republicans. So she's trying to further those lies with this response by saying that's the real stuff that they're not going to touch. And this is just proof that they'll always move the line. They'll always move the line and say, oh, well, actually, you can only disprove our narrative if this were to happen or if that were to happen. And they can't just accept that evidence does not bolster the nonsense you're pushing about Biden and his crime family, as they call it, or about the quote-unquote two-tier justice system that's hurting Trump and benefiting Biden. But what we are seeing, and what evidence is time and time again showing us, is that MAGA is completely willing to abandon their dedication to the rule of law in service of Trump. And I just sort of had this pop in my mind, and so I want to play this for you again. One of my favorite confrontations, Jim Acosta and Marjorie Taylor Greene, where this is after it was found out that she sent a text encouraging Trump to invoke martial law, which would be the suspension of ordinary law and military control of the government. And she was encouraging this, of course, to block the peaceful transfer of power. This, to me, is another example of just the rule of law, a dedication to our Constitution. It all can be sacrificed for Trump. We saw it after the 2020 election with this, and we're seeing it now with Trump's legal troubles.
You don't seem to recall a whole lot.
Well,
What's going on there?
You know, Jim, you have a show, and in all fairness, you try to present this image of me to your viewers, and it's just really not correct.
Well, we're just trying to get some answers. Did you send a text asking for the president to declare martial law? Did you do that?
You know, I don't recall those being my text messages, but have you read the text message that you're referring to?
I did.
Because
yeah,
it actually says if you...
It was misspelled, but it seemed to say
actually,
that you're
it
calling
says
for martial
if
law.
you read it correctly, Jim, your problem is you're lying again right now. It says, I do not know on those things. That's what that text message actually says.
Well,
why don't you be honest?
Why even bring it up?
Why don't
why
you be
even bring
honest?
up martial
No,
law?
you know, your problem is you're just one of those liars on television. And people hate it. They can't stand the liars on television.
I'm not the one saying I don't recall, I don't recall, I don't recall.
Quote the supposed text message. Quote it. What does it say? I don't know on those things.
If you want to hang on, let's read
it out loud.
Let's read it. Okay,
why don't
let's
you
take
be
a look.
honest for once?
Let's take a look.
Read it out loud.
Let's take a look. I mean, my question is
read it out
why
loud.
even...
What does it actually say?
Okay.
What is the text message? Read the whole thing.
Let's look at it. Okay.
Yeah, let's read it.
But you're saying you don't recall it.
I don't know if that's my text message or not, but if you want to talk about a text message, read the text message. Do something
Let's take
real.
a look. Let's take a look.
Okay, read the exact text message that you're talking about.
I'll read it. I'll read it. Let's take a look here.
Oh, we got an article. Why don't you find the actual text message?
Let's see here. Let's hang on a second. In our private chat with only members, several are saying the only way to save our republic is for Trump to call for martial law. Marshall was not spelled.
Keep going with the text message.
I don't know on those things. I just wanted you to tell him.
I don't know on those things. Is that what that says? It says I don't know on those things.
But why
Wait,
even
hold
bring
on,
it up?
stop. This text message that's supposedly mine, I don't know if it is. What does it say? It says some members, and then it says, wait, hold on. It says I don't know. Wait, I don't know if that's my text. It says I don't know on those things. Why don't you tell that story? No.
You're saying you don't know if it's your text, but you're being awful defensive about it.
You know why people do not like you?
Why are you being so defensive
about it? Because you're a liar.
Goodness gracious, I forgot how aggravating that was. But yeah, she didn't know. I don't know if it's my text. And if it is my text, I know I said I didn't know. I said I didn't know. I can say it verbatim, but I don't know if that's my text altogether. And also going, hey, some people are thinking that we should do martial law. Tell Trump that, but I don't know. But make sure he's considering that is not the strong defense you think it is. So clear, obvious, the Republican Party, not the party of law and order. Do you know the party that seems increasingly to be pretty aligned with that title? The Democratic Party and President Joe Biden in particular. CNN reports violent crime dropped more than 15% in the United States during the first 3 months of 2024. So to be clear, I already talked to you about a bunch. The 2023 numbers. That was a big arm movement. And 2023 we saw crime rates go back to pre-pandemic levels. Violent and property. Violent going down even lower than it was during the Trump administration, near more than 50-year lows. Wonderful. Even from there now in 2024, the first few months of 2024, we're getting numbers that show it's rapidly declining from there, which is incredible. The new numbers show violent crime from January to March dropped 15.2% compared to the same period in 2023, while murders fell 26.4% and reported rapes decreased by 25.7%. Aggravated assaults decreased during that period when compared to last year by 12.5% according to the data, while robberies fell 17.8%. So just on all these different particular metrics, crime rates are falling. In a statement Monday, Attorney General Merrick Garland stressed the new data makes clear that last year's historic decline in violent crime is continuing. And at one point, it was described as a historic decline, specifically there with homicides. So Biden is overseeing this truly stunning plummet in crime. He's also overseeing, by the way, the largest federal investment in public safety, crime reduction, and law enforcement. Maybe there's some connection there. And obviously, we were going to see things get less intense after the pandemic-related conditions subsided after the pandemic was gotten under control, because that was stimulating a lot of the crime spike. But getting it even lower than where we were before the pandemic started this rapidly, and now it seems to be on a trajectory going even lower, is remarkable. And on networks like Fox News, and I think the majority of Americans, that's not what people are hearing, that's not what they're believing. The majority of Americans think crime is rising, just like how the majority of Americans think there's a recession. And part of the reason is because they're just being constantly brutally misinformed by networks like Fox News. So for all the coverage that has been done on Fox News in particular, and these right-wing outlets about crime, you're unsafe, causing people to have a worse quality of life because they think they're less safe than they are, will Fox News do an updated story on how all the coverage they've been doing over the last couple of years has mostly been inaccurate, and Biden actually has a pretty historic record on overseeing a crime plummet. It's not all because of Biden, obviously, but they try to blame it all on Biden, so the only consistent thing for them to do would be give him credit when things get much better. Let me know what you thought of all that in the comments, and if you want to get the Daily Bonus Show, you can do so by clicking the join button below.